The warning siren screamed across Earth as massive ships appeared in space near Jupiter. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his warship, watching the radar screen fill with red dots. Each dot was an enemy ship bigger than anything humans had ever built. Jake had been a soldier for 20 years. He fought in the Mars colony wars and the asteroid mining conflicts. But this was different. These ships came from another star system, and they were not here to talk. The alien fleet had 300 ships. Their hulls were made of some kind of crystal that sparkled in the sunlight. Energy weapons glowed along their sides like angry eyes. The largest ship was 10 times bigger than Earth's biggest space station. Admiral Korak stood on his command ship, looking at the blue planet ahead. His forearms moved across control panels while his compound eyes studied the data. This was his 17th conquest. Each time the process was the same. Show up with overwhelming force, demand surrender, and add another species to the empire. The intelligence reports made him confident. Humans were barely past chemical rockets. Their weapons were simple projectile guns and basic missiles. Their ships moved slowly compared to Zephyrian vessels that could cross star systems in days. Jake received the first message from Earth Command. Admiral Lisa Carter's voice was calm but serious. All ships, this is Admiral Carter. We have confirmed. Hostile contact. 300 enemy vessels of unknown design. They are not responding to peace signals. The second message came from the aliens themselves. The translation computers worked for several minutes before producing text that appeared on every screen in the solar system. Primitive species of the third planet. We are the Zephyrian Empire. We have conquered 17 star systems. Your technology is weak. Your weapons cannot harm us. You have one rotation of your planet to surrender completely. Submit now and serve us. Refuse and we will destroy every living thing in this system. Jake read the message twice. Around him, his crew looked scared but determined. Communications Officer Emma Rodriguez reported that similar messages were being broadcast to Mars, the asteroid mining stations, and all human colonies. On Earth, billions of people watched their screens in silence. The Zephyrian ships were so large they could be seen through telescopes. Children pointed at the sky where tiny sparkles of light moved between the stars. The response came not from any government building or military headquarters. It came from ordinary people, factory workers in Detroit, farmers in Iowa, students in Tokyo, miners on Ceres Station. The same word appeared on social media, news channels, and communication networks across human space. No, Jake smiled when he saw the flood of messages. Truck drivers, teachers, doctors, engineers, and construction workers all saying the same thing. Nobody was asking to surrender. Nobody was begging for mercy. They were angry. Admiral Carter's next transmission reached every human ship and station. This is Earth Defense Command to all vessels and installations. The alien demand has been rejected by popular vote. We will not surrender. We will not bow. We will fight with everything we have. The Zephyrian response was swift. Energy beams lanced out from their ships, destroying 2 unmanned satellites near Mars. The beams cut through metal and electronics like paper, leaving nothing but scattered debris. Korax expected panic. Previous species had started transmitting surrender offers within hours of the first demonstration. Instead, human communication traffic increased. Military frequencies buzzed with activity as ships moved into combat positions. Jake ordered his crew to battle stations. The Defiance was humanity's newest warship, built with fusion reactors and electromagnetic railguns. It had energy shields that could stop some weapons, but nobody knew if they would work against Zephyrian technology. Chief Engineer Sam Torres ran diagnostics on all systems. Captain, we're as ready as we'll ever be. Reactors at full power, all weapons loaded, shields up. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Brooks studied tactical displays at his station. He had read every military history book ever written. Sun Tzu, Napoleon, Patton, and modern space combat theorists. Sir, they're using standard formation tactics. Big ships in front, smaller ones protecting the flanks. It's exactly what you'd expect from an empire that's never lost a battle. Emma Rodriguez intercepted more alien communications. Captain, they're talking to each other like this is routine. No excitement, no preparation for serious combat. They think this will be easy. Jake looked at his crew. These were good people. Rodriguez had 2 kids back on Earth. Torres had built engines for mining ships before joining the military. Brooks had turned down a teaching job to serve on the Defiance. They were not super soldiers or genetic modifications. They were just humans who refused to quit. The second Zephyrian demonstration was more dramatic. Their main cannon fired once, carving a canyon across the surface of an empty moon. The energy beam traveled 8 million kilometers in seconds, showing that nowhere in the solar system was safe. Still, the human response was the same. Every ship moved closer to Earth instead of running away. Civilian transports loaded with families headed for deep space shelters, but the crews volunteered to stay and fight. Mining ships armed themselves with construction tools converted into weapons. Korak studied the tactical display with growing confusion. Normal species tried to negotiate at this point. They offered tribute, hostages, or partial surrender. Humans were doing the opposite. Their ships were taking aggressive positions. Jake opened a channel to the alien fleet. His message was simple and direct. This is Captain Morrison of the Earthship Defiance. We received your ultimatum. Here is our answer. Come and take it. The die was cast. In 24 hours, the most powerful military force in the galaxy would learn what happened when they tried to break the human spirit. The first battle began at dawn, Earth time. Korax expected a quick victory. His ships moved in perfect formation, energy weapons charging for a devastating first strike. What he got instead was chaos. Human ships scattered in all directions. Instead of meeting the Zephyrian fleet head-on, they broke into small groups and attacked from every angle. Captain Morrison led one squadron behind Jupiter's moons while Commander Amy Stone took another group into the asteroid belt. Lieutenant, Commander Ryan Brooks had spent the night studying alien movement patterns. Captain, they fight like they're on parade. Perfect formations, predictable tactics. They've never faced an enemy that doesn't follow the rules. The Zephyrians had rules. For space combat developed over centuries of conquest, large ships stayed in formation to provide mutual support. Smaller vessels protected the flanks. Everyone advanced together in an organized line. Humans had different ideas. Amy Stone's fighter squadron came screaming out of the asteroid field, at maximum speed. Her ships were tiny compared to Zephyrian cruisers, but they moved 3 times faster and could change direction in seconds. Target their weapon arrays, Stone ordered over the radio. Hit and run. Don't stay in one place long enough for them to lock on. Her pilots opened fire with railguns and missiles. The projectiles moved so fast that Zephyrian shields barely had time to activate. Metal slugs punched through crystal hulls, destroying weapon systems and causing explosions inside enemy ships. Korax watched in disbelief as his perfectly ordered battle line fell apart. Human ships appeared from behind planets, asteroids, and even gas clouds. They fired quickly and disappeared before his gunners could respond. The worst part was the humans' complete disregard for military logic. When Zephyrian doctrine called for retreat, humans attacked harder. When facing superior firepower, they got closer instead of backing away. Chief Engineer Sam Torres had been working with the mining crews from Ceres Station. They knew how to move rocks in space better than anyone. Captain Morrison, we've got something special for the aliens. Torres had attached fusion bombs to asteroids and set them on collision courses with the Zephyrian fleet. The rocks looked harmless until they exploded next to enemy ships. Each blast sent millions of metal fragments, flying at incredible speeds. Morrison smiled as he watched 3 alien cruisers get shredded by asteroid shrapnel. Good work, Sam. Keep them coming. The space around Earth became a shooting gallery. Human ships used every trick they could think of. They hid behind space stations, used solar panels as shields, and even rammed damaged vessels into enemy formations. Pilot Tony Blake was flying a fighter with a damaged engine when he spotted a Zephyrian command ship. Instead of retreating to safety, he aimed his crippled craft at the alien bridge and ejected at the last second. His fighter smashed through the command ship's crystal windows, destroying its main computer. Korax realized his tactical computers could not predict human behavior. Every simulation showed that inferior forces should retreat when faced with overwhelming power. Humans kept attacking instead. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "we have lost 47 vessels. The humans are not fighting according to any known military doctrine. The Zephyrians tried to adapt. They spread their ships out to prevent ambushes. Humans responded by concentrating all their firepower on single targets. When aliens bunched together for mutual protection, human ships attacked from multiple directions at once." Dr. Alex Johnson was working in a laboratory buried deep under the moon's surface. He had pieces of Zephyrian technology recovered from destroyed ships. "These power systems are incredible," he told his team. "But look at this energy signature. There's a pattern here." Johnson discovered that Zephyrian quantum cores operated on specific frequencies. More importantly, those frequencies could be disrupted by the right kind of electromagnetic pulse. The same technology humans used for radio communication could potentially shut down alien ships. Meanwhile, the battle continued around Mars. Governor Kate Williams had converted the planet's industrial facilities into weapons factories. Assembly lines that once built terraforming equipment now produced missiles and fighter craft. "We need every ship we can get," Williams announced over the planetary communication system. "Cargo haulers, passenger transports, even construction vehicles. If it can fly and carry a weapon, we need it." The response was overwhelming. Civilian pilots volunteered faster than the military could train them. Elderly veterans came out of retirement to fly one more mission. Teenagers who had never left planetary orbit demanded combat assignments. Commander Dan Murphy was leading the defense of Mars orbital space when he received word that his home city had been destroyed by Zephyrian bombardment. Instead of breaking his spirit, the news made him fight harder. "All ships, this is Murphy," he transmitted to his squadron. "They just made this personal. No mercy, no quarter. Make them pay for every inch." The human fighting style was completely alien to Zephyrian experience. When their ships were damaged, aliens tried to withdraw for repairs. When human ships were damaged, they often became more dangerous. Crews would overload their reactors, ram enemy vessels, or fire every weapon they had until their ships exploded. Korax watched the tactical display with growing concern. His empire had conquered 17 star systems using fear and overwhelming force. Species surrendered when they realized resistance was hopeless. Humans seemed to get more determined when things looked impossible. "Send a message to High Command," Korax ordered. "Request additional reinforcements. These humans are not like the others." The message would take weeks to reach the Zephyrian home system. By then, the outcome of the battle for Earth would already be decided. But Korax was beginning to suspect that victory might not be as certain as he had believed. Jake Morrison received a damage report from his chief engineer. The Defiance had taken heavy hits, but all major systems were still functional. His crew worked with quiet determination. They had been fighting for 6 hours straight, but nobody complained about fatigue or fear. "Captain," Emma Rodriguez called from her station, "I'm picking up chatter from the alien fleet. They're requesting new orders from their high command." Morrison understood what that meant. The Zephyrians were not winning as quickly as they expected. Their perfect conquest machine was meeting something it had never encountered before: humans who refused to lose. The real test was still coming. Both sides had taken losses, but the aliens still had superior numbers and technology. The question was whether human determination could overcome those advantages. The answer would determine the fate of not just humanity, but every species in the galaxy that dreamed of freedom. The destruction of New Geneva orbital platform changed everything. 15,000 civilians died when Zephyrian energy beams cut through the station like it was made of paper. Children, families, workers, who had never held a weapon in their lives. Korax expected the usual response: horror, despair, and offers to surrender. Instead, he received a transmission from Colonel Dan Murphy on Mars that made his compound eyes widen in surprise. "Alien Commander, this is Colonel Murphy. You just killed 15,000 innocent people. Congratulations. You've made this personal. We weren't just fighting for territory anymore. Now, we're fighting for revenge." The change in human behavior was immediate and terrifying. Ships that had been using careful tactics suddenly became reckless. Pilots who had been following orders started making independent attacks. The disciplined military resistance became something much more dangerous, a population-wide war of hatred. Amy Stone led her fighter squadron in a suicide run against the Zephyrian ship that had destroyed New Geneva. Half her pilots died in the attack, but they managed to cripple the alien vessel's main reactor. As her damaged fighter spun towards certain death, Stone transmitted her final message. That was for the kids on New Geneva. Dr. Alex Johnson was working around the clock in his underground laboratory. The electromagnetic frequency discovery was promising, but he needed more data. The breakthrough came when Commander Tony Blake was shot down and captured during a reconnaissance mission. Blake found himself standing before Admiral Corax in the alien flagship's command center. The Zephyrian commander towered over him, forearms spread wide in what Blake assumed was meant to be intimidating. "Human," Corax spoke through a translation device. "Your species faces extinction. Your ships are destroyed. Your people are dying. Surely you can see that resistance is pointless." Blake looked up at the alien with calm eyes. "You don't understand us at all, do you? Humans don't surrender when things get tough. We get tougher. Every person you kill makes the rest of us fight harder." Corax studied the human prisoner with fascination. Previous captives had begged for mercy or tried to bargain for their lives. This one showed no fear at all. "Your Admiral Morrison is dead," Corax lied, hoping to break the human spirit. "His ship was destroyed an hour ago." Blake smiled. "Then Commander Rodriguez is in charge, and if you kill her, Chief Torres takes over. And if you kill him, some sergeant will step up. You can't win by cutting off the head because we don't have just one head. Every human is ready to lead. The year?" Interrogation continued for hours, but Blake never revealed any useful information. Worse, his calm confidence began to affect the Zephyrian crew. They had never met an enemy who seemed completely unafraid of death. Meanwhile, on Mars, Governor DVD Kate Williams was coordinating the planet's defense. The Red Planet had become a fortress, with weapons factories buried deep underground and fighter squadrons launching from hidden bases. Engineer Rachel Davis was working with Sam Torres to modify human communication equipment. Johnson's discovery about electromagnetic frequencies had given them an idea. If they could generate the right signal at close range, they might be able to shut down Zephyrian ships completely. "The problem is getting close enough," Torres explained to Captain Morrison during a brief communication window. "We need to be within a few thousand kilometers for the effect to work." Morrison understood immediately. It would be a suicide mission. Any ship that got that close to the Zephyrian flagship would be destroyed by defensive weapons long before it could transmit the disruptive frequency. "I'll do it," Morrison said without hesitation. "The Defiance has the strongest shields and the best engines. We have the best chance of getting through." The plan was desperate, but simple. The Defiance would load its communication array with the electromagnetic frequency weapon and ram straight through the Zephyrian battle line. If they could get close enough to the alien command ship, the pulse would disable every enemy vessel in the area. Lieutenant Kelly Preston was flying escort duty when she received the mission briefing. Her squadron was supposed to clear a path. For Morrison's attack run, it was clearly a one-way trip, but every pilot volunteered immediately. "Captain," she transmitted to Morrison, "we'll get you through. Count on it." The attack began at midnight, ship time. Human vessels from across the solar system converged on the Zephyrian fleet in a coordinated assault. It was the largest space battle in human history, and everyone knew it would probably be the last. Morrison pushed the Defiance to maximum speed while enemy fire lit up space around him. Energy beams that could vaporize smaller ships struck his shields again and again. Each hit weakened the protective barrier, but the ship kept moving forward. Kelly Preston's fighters swarmed around the Defiance like angry wasps. They attacked any Zephyrian ship that tried to target the battlecruiser, sacrificing themselves to keep Morrison's mission alive. One by one, the escort fighters disappeared in brilliant explosions. Sergeant Mike Turner was leading a boarding party that had somehow captured a Zephyrian destroyer. His Marines were holding the bridge against counterattacks. buying time for human engineers to figure out how alien systems worked. "Sir," one of his men called out, "they're trying to retake engineering. We can't hold them much longer." Turner hefted his assault rifle and headed toward the sound of gunfire. "Then we make them pay for every step. Remember, Marines, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every kid who wants to grow up free." The boarding action turned into a 6-hour nightmare of close combat in alien corridors. Turner's men used human weapons against enemies with superior technology and home field advantage. They held their ground through sheer stubborn determination and the knowledge that retreat meant failure. Back on the Defiance, Morrison could see the Zephyrian flagship growing larger on his screen. Defensive fire was getting heavier as he approached, but his shields were almost gone. One more major hit would destroy the ship. "Captain," Torres called from engineering, "I can give you more power to the shields, but I'll have to overload the reactor. We'll have maybe 10 minutes before the whole ship explodes." Morrison didn't hesitate. "Do it." The Defiance surged forward with one final burst of speed. Morrison aimed directly at the Zephyrian command ship's bridge, knowing that even if the electromagnetic pulse failed, ramming the alien flagship might still disrupt their battle coordination. Corax watched the human ship approaching and felt something he had never experienced before: uncertainty. This attack made no tactical sense. The human ship would be destroyed long before it could cause significant damage. Yet Morrison kept coming, ignoring defensive fire that would have sent any rational commander retreating. "All batteries, concentrate. Fire on that ship," Corax ordered. "Destroy it before it reaches us." But the Defiance had one advantage the aliens didn't expect. Human ships were built to take damage and keep fighting. Every system had backups, every critical component was armored, and the crew was trained to keep working even when their ship was falling apart around them. Morrison's final transmission reached every human ship in the battle zone. For Earth, for our children, for freedom. The electromagnetic pulse erupted from the Defiance just as the ship rammed into the Zephyrian flagship's crystal hull. The frequency weapon worked exactly as Johnson had predicted, cascading through the alien fleet's quantum cores and shutting down hundreds of ships simultaneously. But the pulse also revealed something the Zephyrians had been hiding. Their seemingly endless fleet was running on empty. They had gambled everything on a quick victory, and human resistance had already cost them more ships than they could afford to lose. The electromagnetic pulse from Morrison's sacrifice spread through the Zephyrian fleet like wildfire. Ship after ship went dark as their quantum cores shut down. In the space of 30 seconds, the most powerful military force in the galaxy became a collection of floating metal. Commander Emma Rodriguez found herself in command of the human fleet when the Defiance exploded. She had never expected to lead a space battle, but Morrison's final act had given them a chance they couldn't waste. "All ships, this is Rodriguez," she transmitted across the fleet. "The aliens are dead in space. Attack now while their weapons are down." The response was immediate and devastating. Human ships that had been barely holding their own suddenly found themselves fighting helpless targets. Railguns and missiles tore through crystalline hulls that no longer had energy shields for protection. Corax watched his empire's pride crumble from the bridge of his crippled flagship. Emergency power was slowly coming online, but it would take hours to restart the main systems. Around him, his crew worked frantically to restore basic functions. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "we have lost 230 ships. Most are completely without power. The humans are destroying our disabled vessels faster than we can count." For the first time in his military career, Corax faced the possibility of defeat. The Zephyrian Empire had built its reputation on overwhelming technological superiority. Without that advantage, they were just another species with guns. Tony Blake was still imprisoned on the alien flagship when the lights went out. In the confusion that followed, he managed to escape his cell and make his way through dark corridors toward what he hoped was the communications center. Blake had been a communications specialist before becoming a pilot. If he could access the Zephyrian command network, he might be able to learn something useful about their fleet's condition. What he found was better than he had hoped. The aliens were talking to each other in panic. Their perfect war machine was falling apart, and they had no experience dealing with that kind of chaos. Blake listened to their communications and realized something important. They were scared. Dr. Johnson's electromagnetic weapon had worked better than anyone expected. The pulse didn't just shut down individual ships, it revealed the Zephyrian fleet's greatest weakness. They were operating at the edge of their supply lines, with barely enough fuel and ammunition for one major battle. Lieutenant Kelly Preston had survived the escort mission by pure luck. Her fighter was damaged but still flying when the alien ships went dark. She found herself floating in space surrounded by hundreds of disabled enemy vessels. "This is Preston to all fighters," she broadcast. "The big ships are helpless. Hit their weapon systems and engines. Make sure they can't fight even when power comes back online." The fighter attack was methodical and brutal. Human pilots who had been dodging alien fire for hours suddenly found themselves in a target-rich environment. They picked apart the disabled ships piece by piece, destroying anything that looked important. Governor Williams on Mars received the first reports of the battle's outcome with disbelief. The Zephyrian fleet was crippled. Human forces were pressing their advantage. After days of desperate fighting, victory was within reach. "All manufacturing facilities, this is Governor Williams," she announced planet-wide. "Continue production at maximum capacity. We need ships, weapons, and supplies for a counterattack. This is our chance to end this war." The response from Mars colonies was immediate. Workers who had been putting in 18-hour shifts found the energy to work even longer. Production lines that were already running at impossible speeds somehow found ways to increase output. Engineer Sam Torres was leading a boarding party onto a disabled Zephyrian cruiser when he made another important discovery. The alien ships were incredibly advanced, but they had been designed by a species that never expected to lose a battle. "Look at this," Torres told his team as they explored the enemy vessel. "No internal defenses, no security systems, no way to fight borders. They never thought anyone would get inside their ships." The Zephyrian design philosophy was based on absolute technological superiority. They built ships that could destroy any enemy from long range, but they had never considered what would happen if the enemy got close enough to board. Human marines and engineers swarmed through disabled alien ships, learning how their technology worked and looking for anything that could be used as a weapon. What they found was a treasure trove of advanced equipment operated by crews that had no idea how to fight without their computers. Sergeant Turner was still holding the captured destroyer when news of the electromagnetic pulse reached him. His Marines had been fighting room-to-room battles for hours, but suddenly the alien resistance collapsed completely. "Sir," one of his men reported, "the aliens are surrendering. They're just putting down their weapons and giving up." Turner had never seen anything like it. Human soldiers fought until they were dead or unconscious. The idea of surrender was so foreign that his men didn't know how to handle prisoners who simply stopped fighting. The real breakthrough came when human engineers figured out how to operate Zephyrian communication systems. Dr. Johnson had been right about their quantum cores, but the aliens' computer networks were even more vulnerable than anyone had imagined. Rachel Davis was working in the captured destroyer's communication center when she accessed the Zephyrian fleet's database. What she found changed everything. Humans thought they knew about their enemies. "Commander Rodriguez," Davis transmitted to the human fleet commander. "You need to see this. The Zephyrian Empire is not as strong as they want us to believe." The database revealed that the Empire was stretched thin across 17 star systems. They had been conquering new territories faster than they could properly control them. The fleet attacking Earth represented most of their mobile military forces. More importantly, the Zephyrians had never faced serious resistance before. Their entire military doctrine was based on quick victories against technologically inferior enemies. They had no experience fighting a prolonged war against determined opponents. Rodriguez studied the intelligence data with growing excitement. If the information was accurate, destroying the Zephyrian fleet would cripple their entire empire. Other conquered species might see this as an opportunity to rebel. "All ships, this is Rodriguez," she transmitted to the human fleet. "We're not just fighting for Earth anymore. We're fighting to free the galaxy." The tide of battle had turned completely. Human ships that had been desperately defending their home system were now hunting down the remaining functional Zephyrian vessels. The aliens who had arrived expecting an easy conquest found themselves fighting for survival. Korax managed to restore partial power to his flagship just in time to watch his empire's reputation die. 3 centuries of military dominance were ending in a single battle against a species that had barely discovered faster-than-light travel. Send a message to the fleet, Korax ordered with resignation. General retreat. All ships that can move are to withdraw from this system immediately. The order went out across the Zephyrian fleet, but many ships couldn't receive it. Their communication systems were still offline, and human boarding parties were systematically destroying anything that looked important. Emma Rodriguez watched the alien retreat begin and made a decision that would echo through galactic history. Instead of letting the Zephyrians escape, she ordered the human fleet to pursue. All ships maintain attack. Don't let them regroup. Press the advantage while we have it. The chase lasted for 3 days. Human ships, smaller and faster than their enemies, harassed the retreating Zephyrians all the way to the edge of the solar system. By the time the aliens finally escaped, they had lost over 2/3 of their original fleet. But the real victory was not measured in destroyed ships. Word of humanity's triumph spread through galactic communication networks faster than the fleeing Zephyrians could travel. The empire that had seemed invincible was running from a species most civilizations had never heard of. The galaxy was about to learn that humans were far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. Admiral Korax's final message to the Zephyrian High Command was brief and devastating. The human system cannot be conquered by conventional means. Recommend immediate diplomatic contact. These beings do not understand defeat. The transmission reached the Empire's capital 3 weeks after the battle for Earth. By then, the political damage was already spreading across the galaxy like a virus. News of the Zephyrian defeat had traveled through trade networks, diplomatic channels, and communication relays to every corner of civilized space. Captain Helen Baker had been promoted to admiral after Morrison's sacrifice. She stood on the bridge of humanity's newest flagship, watching construction crews build orbital defense platforms around Earth. The victory had cost them dearly, but it had also given them something more valuable than ships or weapons: respect. Tikau. First alien delegation to arrive was from the Andromedan Federation, a collection of species that had remained neutral during the Zephyrian expansion. Their message was simple and direct. They wanted to establish formal diplomatic relations with humanity. Ambassador Janet Miller, formerly a colonial administrator on Mars, found herself representing Earth in its first interstellar diplomatic meeting. The Andromedan delegates were nervous, polite, and clearly impressed by humanity's military achievement. "Your species has accomplished something remarkable," the lead Andromedan diplomat explained through translation devices. The Zephyrian Empire was considered invincible. "You have shown that their technology can be defeated by determination and creative tactics." Miller smiled diplomatically, but inside she was amazed by how quickly everything had changed. A month ago, humans were unknown to galactic civilization. Now they were being courted by major powers as potential allies. The second group to make contact was the Galactic Trade Consortium, a massive commercial organization that controlled shipping and commerce between star systems. Their representative, a tall being with blue skin and multiple eyes, arrived with an offer of full membership benefits. "We have observed your industrial capacity during the recent conflict," the trade representative explained. "Your ability to convert civilian infrastructure to military production in mere days is unprecedented. We believe human manufacturing could be very profitable for consortium members." Dr. Johnson was working in his expanded laboratory, now funded by Earth's grateful government, when he received a priority message from the Crystalline Collective. The ancient race had remained isolated for thousands of years, but they were interested in human military innovations. "We have studied your electromagnetic pulse weapon," their message stated. "The creative application of simple technology to defeat advanced systems shows remarkable intelligence. We wish to exchange scientific information." Johnson realized that humanity's victory was opening doors throughout the galaxy. Species that had been afraid to challenge Zephyrian dominance were suddenly interested in human military doctrine, technology, and philosophy. Meanwhile, the political effects of the defeat were tearing the Zephyrian Empire apart from within. 3 client species declared independence within months of the Earth battle. The Vorthan Rebellion began when their military leaders realized that Zephyrian ships could be defeated by determined resistance. General Marcus Webb, now commanding Earth's expanded defense forces, received intelligence reports about uprisings across Zephyrian territory. Species that had been conquered decades ago were fighting for freedom, inspired by humanity's example. "It's spreading faster than we thought," Webb explained to Admiral Baker during a strategy meeting. The Zephyrians built their empire on fear and the belief that resistance was hopeless. Once that belief was broken, their whole system started falling apart. The most significant change was in how other species viewed warfare itself. For generations, galactic civilizations had accepted that technological superiority guaranteed victory. Humans had proven that creativity, determination, and willingness to sacrifice could overcome any technological advantage. Lieutenant Colonel Amy Stone, promoted after her survival of the fighter pilot massacre, was training new recruits when she received a message from the Hegemony Defense Corps. The military organization that protected dozens of smaller species wanted to hire human instructors. "They want us to teach their officers how to fight like humans," Stone told her training cadets. "Apparently, our refusal to follow standard military doctrine is now considered a tactical advantage worth learning." The economic effects were equally dramatic. Human manufacturing techniques developed during the desperate war production effort were revolutionizing industrial processes throughout the galaxy. The ability to rapidly convert civilian facilities to military use was something no other species had mastered. Engineer Sam Torres found himself appointed as Earth's Director of Technology Exchange. Alien delegations arrived daily, hoping to learn human engineering methods. What they discovered was that human innovation came not from advanced technology, but from a willingness to try unconventional solutions. "They keep asking for our secret," Torres explained to his staff. "They don't understand that the secret is refusing to accept that something is impossible. When we needed weapons, we turned asteroids into missiles. When we needed ships, we armed cargo haulers. They're looking for advanced technology when what they really need is imagination." The cultural impact was perhaps most profound. Human entertainment, literature, and philosophy began spreading through galactic networks. The concept of individual freedom, which humans took for granted, was revolutionary to species that had lived under authoritarian rule for centuries. Tony Blake had become something of a celebrity after his escape from Zephyrian captivity. His story of defying alien interrogation had been translated into dozens of languages and was inspiring resistance movements throughout the galaxy. "The thing they couldn't understand," Blake explained during a broadcast interview, "was that I wasn't afraid of dying. They kept threatening to kill me. But humans have been facing death for our beliefs since we climbed down from the trees. It's what we do." The Zephyrian Empire's response to their defeat was predictable and desperate. They began demanding tribute from their remaining client species to fund fleet reconstruction. This only accelerated the rebellion as conquered worlds realized they had nothing left to lose. Admiral Baker received regular intelligence updates about the Empire's declining situation. "They're pulling back from frontier systems to protect their core worlds," she reported to Earth's leadership. 3 more species declared independence last week, and their military is stretched too thin to respond effectively. The irony was not lost on military historians. The Zephyrian Empire had been destroyed not by superior technology or overwhelming force, but by the simple human refusal to surrender. Their greatest weakness had been their inability to understand that some species would rather die fighting than live as slaves. Dr. Johnson's research had evolved from weapons development to pure science. Alien scientists were eager to collaborate with humans on projects that seemed impossible by conventional standards. The electromagnetic pulse weapon had been just the beginning. "We're not just building better technology," Johnson explained to his international research team. "We're changing how the galaxy thinks about problem solving. When other species encounter a limitation, they accept it. When humans encounter a limitation, we figure out how to break it." The final confirmation of humanity's impact came from an unexpected source. A secret message reached Earth from Zephyrian military commanders who were planning their own rebellion against the High Command. They wanted human assistance in overthrowing their government. Admiral Baker read the message with amazement. They're asking us to help them fight their own empire. The species that tried to conquer us now wants to learn how to be free. The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had not just won a military victory. They had introduced concepts of freedom, determination, and creative problem-solving to civilizations that had forgotten these ideas were possible. The Zephyrian Empire's greatest mistake had been underestimating a species that refused to accept defeat. In spaceports, universities, and military academies across hundreds of worlds, beings studied human tactics, philosophy, and culture. The HFY lesson was clear. It was not the size of the fleet that mattered, but the strength of the will to fight. And humans, as the galaxy was learning, had the strongest will of all. The age of human dominance in galactic affairs had begun, not through conquest, but through the simple demonstration that freedom was worth fighting for no matter the odds.